The Draconian Empire stood as a testament to the power of brute strength and military dominance, a gigantic force in the galaxy that had crushed countless planets under its heel. The Draconians, a formidable reptilian species, were known for their towering physiques, thick scales, and a primitive wrath that had been refined through millennia of conquest. Their empire, vast and uncontested, had expanded through the ages, growing via the calculated use of terror and dominance. Central to their culture was the notion that only the strong deserved to lead, and this belief was enforced with the ancient practice of solitary combat duels. These duels were not mere displays of physical strength, they were a vital aspect of the Draconian way of life. Any species that sought to negotiate peace, trade, or partnership with the Draconians was required to first send their greatest warrior to fight the Draconian king in combat. Triumph in this duel was the only way to earn the respect of the Draconians and obtain any form of treaty. But no species had ever defeated the Draconian king. The Empire's most feared and esteemed figure had never been vanquished in combat. His superior capabilities and brutal efficiency in the arena were legendary, and his reign had lasted for years without dispute. The king's reputation was more than just myth. It was a carefully cultivated tool of political dominance. Every duel he fought and won solidified the Draconian Empire's position in the galaxy, reminding all species that the Draconians were invincible. His triumphs were not merely personal victories, but assertions of the Empire's unshakable power. The defeated challengers, no matter how formidable in their own right, became emblems of the futility of resisting Draconian rule. This ritualistic combat was the cornerstone of the Empire's expansion, allowing them to subjugate different species without the need for prolonged wars. It was a system that had worked seamlessly for ages, and the Draconian king had grown arrogant in his undefeated status. The king himself was an image of both awe and terror, looming over his subjects. His scales, dark as obsidian, made him the epitome of Draconian strength. His combat skills were unparalleled, honed over centuries of battles against the finest warriors the galaxy had to offer. Yet, it wasn't just his physical prowess that made him feared, it was his calculating mind. He knew how to exploit the shortcomings of his opponents, how to break their spirits before crushing their bodies. His triumphs were as much psychological as they were physical, and this combination of intellect and strength made him seem invincible. When humanity first made its presence felt on the cosmic stage, the Draconian king's attention was piqued. Humans were a new species, one that had swiftly advanced from their home planet to explore the stars. They were not the first species to achieve space travel, but their speed and determination were unusual. Still, to the Draconians, mankind was simply another upstart race, one that needed to be put in its place. As was tradition, when humans sought to build diplomatic connections with the Draconian Empire, the king issued the traditional challenge. He would face humanity's greatest warrior in single combat, confident that this duel would end like all the others, with his victory and humanity's capitulation. The king's confidence was rooted in years of unbroken success. He saw humanity as yet another species that would be humbled before the might of the Draconians. There was no doubt in his mind that this would be an easy victory. The humans, with their smaller, weaker frames and lack of natural armor, looked ill-equipped for the brutal nature of Draconian combat. The king eagerly anticipated adding another victory to his legacy, another species to the growing list of those who had fallen before him. It was a ceremony he had performed countless times, and the outcome had always been the same. Yet this time, things were different. Humanity's warrior was not just any soldier. He was a creation of Earth's most advanced military science, a genetically enhanced super soldier who had undergone the most rigorous training programs known to humankind. The Draconian king, in his arrogance, did not anticipate that this human would pose a real challenge. He did not consider that humanity, despite being new to the galactic stage, had learned from the mistakes of others. They had studied Draconian battle tactics and had prepared for this moment with painstaking precision. As the day of the duel approached, the Draconian king remained as confident as ever, certain that he would emerge victorious. He did not realize that the human warrior, calm and determined, was ready to face him with a strategy and skill set unlike anything the king had encountered before. The stage was set for a clash that would not only test the limits of both warriors, but also challenge the very foundations of the Draconian Empire's dominance. Humanity had entered the arena, and the Draconian King was about to face a battle that could change the course of galactic history forever. He proceeded to accomplish his plan. He used the king's aggression against him, luring him into traps, compelling him to overextend and leave himself vulnerable. The king's prior confidence was now replaced by an increasing knowledge that this duel was unlike any he had fought before. With each passing instant, the human's strategy became more clear. He was not trying to outmuscle the monarch, he was outthinking him. The human's superior combat skills, honed through years of training and countless clashes, were beginning to take their toll on the Draconian King. The king, for all his power, was finding it increasingly difficult to land a decisive blow. The human's speed and intelligence were proving to be a formidable combination, one that the monarch had not foreseen. The tension in the arena was evident as the duel entered its next phase. The Draconian elites, who had initiated the fight with applause and confident grins, were now watching in silence, their faces engraved with anxiety. Their king was not dominating as they had imagined. He was being matched, if not outmatched, by the human warrior. Driven by resentment and rage, the king launched a series of increasingly desperate attacks, but each one was met with the same frustrating outcome: evasion, counterattack, and never an opportunity to regain control. As the duel progressed, it became obvious that the king was being forced into a defensive position, something he was unaccustomed to. The human's tactics were relentless. Each motion was calculated to wear down the king's stamina, to exploit every opening with precision attacks. He was not merely fighting to survive, he was systematically breaking down the king's defenses, turning the conflict into a battle of endurance and intellect. The Draconian King, who had never experienced defeat, now faced the very real possibility that his reign of invincibility might be coming to an end. The once certain outcome of the duel was now anything but assured. The warrior, through a mix of skill, strategy, and unwavering determination, was challenging everything the Draconian King had relied on for ages. The king's strength was formidable, yet it was no longer enough. The human had begun to change the tide of the war, and with each passing moment, it became evident that this duel was far from over. Now fully aware that his usual tactics were failing, the king felt an unfamiliar sensation: despair. This was unknown territory for him, a warrior who had never seen defeat, who had always relied on his overwhelming physical prowess to demolish any opponent. His fury was clear, showing in the way his attacks became more furious, less controlled. Abandoning any semblance of strategy, he relied solely on brute force, believing that if he could just land a single critical blow, the battle would be over. But each attempt to overpower the human warrior was met with the same outcome: evasion, counterattack, and another missed opportunity. The human, on the other hand, was executing his strategy with precision. Every action was calculated, every strike delivered with intent. He had spent the early portion of the duel learning the king's patterns, studying the rhythm of his attacks, and now he was using that information to turn the tide. Where the king's strikes had once seemed unstoppable, they were now clunky and predictable. The warrior's speed allowed him to dart in and out of the king's reach, landing blows that, while not immediately catastrophic, were beginning to wear the king down. Each strike was deliberate, targeting key areas that would slow the king, sap his energy, and diminish his ability to fight back. For the first time, the king found himself on the defense, struggling to keep up with an opponent who was not just matching his strength but surpassing it with superior tactics. The human's attacks were not random. They were part of a larger strategy designed to exploit the king's overconfidence and rigidity in combat. The king's former arrogance began to evolve into something more dangerous: fear. He sensed that the battle was slipping out of his control, that the human was dictating the pace of the fight. This realization shook him to his core. For ages, he had been the epitome of invincibility, the benchmark against which all others were measured. Yet here he was, struggling to land a single decisive blow against a human, an opponent he had dismissed as an easy conquest. Each futile attempt to reclaim control of the duel only deepened his despair, making him more reckless and less effective. The human warrior, noticing the king's growing vulnerability, pressed his advantage. He forced the king into positions where his options were limited. The monarch's movements, once powerful and fluid, were now labored and frantic. The human's attacks came faster, each one more precise than the last, targeting weak points in the king's armor and exploiting the gaps in his defenses.